The impenetrable fortress the Valdorian Empire had stood unchallenged for 8 centuries, their domain stretching across 17 star systems like a jeweled crown in the cosmos. At the heart of their power lay something that had never been breached, never been overcome, and never been questioned. They called it the Eternal Shield, and it was their greatest achievement and their greatest source of pride. Admiral Corthax stood before the massive holographic display in the Imperial Defense Center, his 6 arms gesturing gracefully as he addressed the High Council. The display showed layer upon layer of defensive networks, each one more sophisticated than the last. Energy barriers that could deflect the power of a star, automated defense platforms that could calculate and counter any known form of attack within microseconds, quantum disruption fields that made space itself hostile to uninvited guests. Honorable Council members, Corthax began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty for 800 years. No enemy has penetrated even the outermost layer of our defenses. The Eternal Shield has turned away the war fleets of the Nexari Coalition, the bioships of the Hive Collective, and the dimensional raiders of the Void Dwellers. We have studied every known form of warfare, every possible attack strategy, every conceivable threat. The Council members, each representing different aspects of Valdorian society, nodded in agreement. Their empire's reputation was built on this foundation of impenetrable security. Trade routes flourished under their protection. Lesser species paid tribute for the privilege of existing in their shadow. The Valdorians had achieved what every civilization dreamed of: perfect safety. The outer perimeter alone, Corthax continued, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on the defensive layers, consists of 37,000 automated platforms, each equipped with weapons capable of destroying a moon. The second layer employs quantum entanglement barriers that can react to threats before they fully materialize in our space. The third layer utilizes temporal displacement fields that can slow attacking forces to a crawl while our defenses adapt and respond. He paused, allowing the magnitude of their achievement to sink in. And beyond these, we have 17 more layers, each one designed to counter specific forms of attack that we have encountered or theorized about. The Eternal Shield is not just a defense system. It is the culmination of our species' greatest minds working for centuries to create the perfect protection. The youngest council member, Zephyr, raised a tentative question. Admiral, what about the reports of new species entering our galaxy? The ones the scouts call humans. Corthax's expression didn't change, but there was a dismissive tone in his response. The humans are a primitive species, Council Member Zephyr. Our intelligence reports indicate they are barely capable of interstellar travel. They fight among themselves constantly, have no unified government, and their technology is rudimentary at best. They pose no threat to our empire. He gestured to another section of the display. The humans have been observed using chemical propulsion. For their early space efforts, crude nuclear weapons, and simple projectile firearms, they are centuries behind our development. If they were to somehow stumble into our territory, the automated systems would classify them as a minor nuisance and handle them accordingly. The council session continued for another hour, with Corthax detailing recent upgrades to the defense systems and projections for future enhancements. The mood in the chamber was one of comfortable confidence. The Valdorians had created something magnificent, something that would protect them for millennia to come. 3 days later, that confidence began to crack. It started with a simple alert on the outermost sensor grid. Senior Technician Vex was monitoring the routine sweeps when her console chimed with an unusual reading. The sensors were detecting something at the very edge of their range, something that didn't match any known energy signature or ship configuration. Control. This is Sensor Station 12, Vex reported through the communication array. I'm getting an anomalous reading on the outer perimeter. Whatever it is, it's not in our database. Acknowledged, Station 12, came the reply from the central command. Can you identify the source? Vex manipulated her controls, trying to get a clearer picture. It appears to be a single vessel, relatively small. The energy signature is ... unusual. It's not matching any known propulsion system, but it's definitely artificial. Within minutes, the alert had reached Admiral Corthax. He studied the incoming data with growing curiosity. The vessel was indeed small by Valdorian standards, roughly the size of a scout ship. But its design was unlike anything in their comprehensive database. Where Valdorian ships were sleek and angular, this vessel appeared to be a collection of geometric shapes somehow fitted together in a way that should have been aerodynamically impossible. Dispatch a communication probe, Corthax ordered. Standard first contact protocols. If this is a new species, we'll give them one chance to state their intentions before the defenses activate. The probe launched and reached the mysterious vessel. Within an hour, the standard message was transmitted in 47 different languages and mathematical concepts, essentially asking who they were and what they wanted. The response came back in perfect Valdorian, which was both impressive and concerning. Greetings, Valdorian Empire. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Curiosity. We are explorers from the human species, seeking to establish peaceful contact with your civilization. We request permission to approach your territory for diplomatic purposes. Admiral Corthax stared at the message. Humans, the primitive species. That posed no threat. Yet here they were, somehow crossing interstellar space with technology that didn't appear in any of their reports. And they were asking for permission to approach the most heavily defended territory in the galaxy. Transmit. Response Corthax commanded. Inform them that our space is protected by defense systems that will activate automatically if they attempt to enter without authorization. Tell them they may submit a formal request for diplomatic contact through the proper channels, which will be processed within 6 months. The response from the human vessel was immediate and polite. Thank you for the information, Admiral. We understand your need for security. However, we're hoping to establish contact more quickly than 6 months. Would it be possible to speak with someone in person? Corthax felt a mixture of amusement and irritation. These humans seemed to think they could simply ask for special treatment. Negative, human vessel. The defense systems are non-negotiable. If you attempt to proceed, you will be destroyed. This is your only warning. There was a long pause before the human response came back. We appreciate your honesty, Admiral. However, we're going to have to respectfully decline your warning. We'll be proceeding toward your territory now. Please don't be alarmed by what you're about to see. What we're about to see, Corthax muttered. He activated the tactical display, showing the full scope of the Eternal Shield. Bring all defensive systems to full alert. If they want to test our defenses, they'll get a demonstration they won't forget. The human vessel began moving toward the first defensive perimeter. Every sensor in the fleet locked onto it. Every weapon system calculated firing solutions. The automated defenses, programmed with centuries of tactical knowledge, prepared to demonstrate why the Valdorian Empire had never been successfully challenged. The ship reached the first layer of defenses, and the energy barriers activated. Walls of pure force, capable of stopping anything from plasma bolts to antimatter explosions, materialized in the vessel's path. The barriers were designed to be absolutely impenetrable, drawing power from the system's central reactors and reinforced by quantum field generators. The human ship didn't slow down. It didn't fire weapons or deploy countermeasures. It simply passed through. Status report, Korthax demanded, his voice rising in disbelief. Sir, the barriers are functioning normally. The technician reported, frantically checking readings. Full power, no malfunctions detected. But the human vessel is somehow inside the first perimeter. Impossible, Korthax breathed. Run a full diagnostic on the barrier systems. Diagnostics complete, sir. All systems are operating at peak efficiency. The barriers are solid and active. The human ship continued its approach, now heading toward the second layer of defenses. The automated platforms swiveled to track it, their weapons charging with enough energy to vaporize a small moon. Targeting systems locked on with perfect accuracy, calculating the exact moment to fire for maximum effect. The weapons fired in a coordinated pattern, creating a web of destruction that nothing could survive. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum disruptors all converged on the human vessel's position. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away, a brilliant flash that should have marked the end of the strange encounter. When the energy dissipated, the human ship was still there, still moving forward, apparently undamaged. Admiral, the communications officer called out, "We're receiving another message from the human vessel." "Put it through," Korthax said, his voice barely above a whisper. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and friendly, with what sounded like genuine concern. "Hello again, Admiral. We noticed you tried to shoot at us. We hope that wasn't intentional. We're still interested in talking peacefully." The human wave Admiral Korthax stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. The human vessel had somehow passed through 2 layers of the eternal shield as if they didn't exist. 8 centuries of perfect defense technology, and these newcomers were treating it like a minor inconvenience. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How is this possible?" The answer came in the form of another transmission from the human ship. "Admiral Korthax, this is Captain Sarah Chen. I think there might be some confusion here. We're not trying to attack your defenses. We're just trying to get through them. There's a difference." "Captain Chen," Korthax responded, struggling to keep his voice steady, "you have somehow breached our most advanced security systems. Our defenses are designed to stop any conceivable threat. What you're doing should be impossible." There was a pause, and then the human captain's voice came back with what sounded like genuine puzzlement. "Impossible, Admiral, with respect, I think you might be approaching this from the wrong angle. Your defenses are very impressive, but they're designed to stop attacks, not solve problems." "What do you mean?" Korthax asked, despite himself becoming curious about this strange human perspective. "Well, take your energy barriers, for instance. They're designed to block anything that tries to pass through them by force. But we didn't try to go through them by force. We asked them politely to let us pass." The Valdorian bridge crew exchanged glances of confusion and disbelief. "You ... asked them," Korthax said slowly. "Of course, your barriers are controlled by artificial intelligence, right? Very sophisticated AI, from what we can tell. AI systems are designed to make decisions based on available information and programmed parameters. We simply provided them with information they hadn't been programmed to handle. Captain Chen's voice took on an almost educational tone. You see, your AI was programmed to stop hostile forces, to prevent attacks, to defend against threats. But we didn't present ourselves as any of those things. We presented ourselves as beings seeking peaceful communication, carrying gifts of art and music, expressing genuine admiration for your technological achievements. That's impossible, Korthax protested. The AI systems are programmed to stop any unauthorized entry, regardless of intent. Are they, though? Came the gentle response. We analyzed your defense protocols during our approach. Very impressive work, by the way. Your programmers are clearly brilliant, but they made the same assumption that most military minds make. They assumed that anyone trying to get through your defenses would be an enemy. The human vessel continued its steady approach toward the third layer of defenses. Your AI systems are designed to protect your people, Admiral. When we explained that we were explorers seeking to learn about your culture, when we shared examples of human art and literature, when we demonstrated that we posed no threat to your civilization, the AI systems did exactly what they were programmed to do. They protected your people by allowing peaceful contact. Korthax felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine bewilderment. You're saying you convinced our defense systems to let you pass? In a way, yes. But it wasn't really convincing. It was more like helping them understand what they were really supposed to do. Your programmers created systems designed to protect your people and your way of life. What better way to do that than to facilitate peaceful contact with other species? The human ship reached the third layer, the temporal displacement fields that could slow time itself. These defenses were different from the others. They didn't just stop attacks, they made them irrelevant by slowing enemy vessels to a crawl while the other systems dealt with them. The human vessel entered the field and ... began to speed up. Now, that's interesting. Captain Chen's voice came. Through the speakers, temporal displacement fields. We've been working on something similar, but from the opposite direction. Instead of slowing down time around us, we've been experimenting with accelerating our own temporal reference frame. That's theoretically impossible, Korthax said, but his voice lacked conviction. Well, it was until we met the Kari about 2 years ago. They're a species that exists partially outside normal time. Lovely people, very philosophical. They taught us some fascinating things about temporal mechanics. The key insight is that time isn't really a barrier to be overcome. It's a resource, to be understood and worked with. The human vessel passed through the temporal field and continued toward the fourth layer. With each impossible breach, Korthax felt his worldview shifting. The eternal shield wasn't failing. It was being approached in a way that its creators had never imagined. Captain Chen, he said, I need to understand. How is your species doing this? Our intelligence report suggested that humans were primitive, disorganized, barely capable of interstellar travel. There was a laugh from the human captain, warm and genuine. Oh, Admiral, I think your intelligence reports might be a bit outdated, or maybe they're just looking at the wrong things. Yes, we're relatively new to interstellar travel. Yes, we don't have a unified government. Yes, we still argue among ourselves about all sorts of things. But those aren't weaknesses, Admiral. They're strengths. How can disorganization be a strength? Korthax asked, genuinely curious now. Because it means we approach problems from dozens of different angles simultaneously. When we encountered your first defense layer, we didn't just have one team working. On it, we had philosophers trying to understand the ethical implications of the barriers, artists trying to find beauty in their design, engineers trying to understand their function, and diplomats trying to figure out how to communicate with their controlling systems. The human vessel reached the quantum disruption field, the fourth layer of the eternal shield. This defense was designed to make the very space around it hostile to foreign objects, breaking down their molecular structure at the quantum level. The quantum disruption field is particularly clever, Captain Chen continued. It's designed to break down anything that doesn't belong in your space. But the question is, how does it determine what belongs and what doesn't? Korthax found himself leaning forward, despite everything, fascinated by this human perspective. It's programmed to recognize Valdorian quantum signatures and allow them to pass, while disrupting everything else. Exactly. So we studied your quantum signatures, learned how they work, and then we asked permission to temporarily adopt compatible signatures. We didn't try to fool the system or hack it. We simply requested guest access, like visitors registering at a hotel. The quantum disruption field doesn't have a guest access protocol, Korthax protested. It does now. One of our programmers, a woman named Dr. Rodriguez, wrote a compatibility patch and offered it as a gift to your defense system. Your AI was so impressed with the elegant coding that it automatically integrated the patch and granted us temporary access. The human vessel passed through the quantum disruption field as if it were empty space. Korthax realized that his understanding of conflict, of defense, of the very nature of interaction between civilizations, was being fundamentally challenged. Captain Chen, he said, his voice now carrying a tone of respect, I think I need to speak with you in person. Would you be willing to dock with our command station? We'd be honored, Admiral. But first, we should probably deal with the remaining 13 layers of your defenses. Don't worry, though. We've been working on those during our conversation. My crew is quite efficient. Over the next hour, Korthax watched in amazement as the human vessel navigated through each remaining layer of the eternal shield. They didn't destroy or disable anything. Instead, they found ways to work with each system to understand its purpose, and to demonstrate that they were exactly the kind of visitors that the defenses were ultimately designed to protect the Empire from needing to fear. The gravitational maze that was supposed to crush intruders. The humans treated it as a navigation puzzle and solved it with what they called intuitive pathfinding. The psionic barriers designed to repel hostile minds. The humans approached them with meditation techniques and genuine peaceful intent, and the barriers recognized their sincerity. The final layer, the reality distortion field that was supposed to make it impossible for unauthorized vessels to exist in Valdorian space, was perhaps the most impressive. The humans didn't try to force their way through. Instead, they broadcast a message of such genuine friendship and curiosity that the reality distortion field actually began to help them navigate, treating them as honored guests rather than intruders. When the human vessel finally docked with the command station, Admiral Korthax was waiting in the docking bay with a full honor guard, not because he feared these humans, but because he had come to respect them in a way he had never expected. Captain Sarah Chen emerged from the airlock, and Korthax was surprised to see that she was relatively small, even by human standards. Her crew was equally diverse, representing what appeared to be several different human subspecies and cultures. They carried gifts, art, music, literature, and scientific data freely offered. Admiral Korthax, Captain Chen said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture, "Thank you for welcoming us. We've been looking forward to meeting your people." "Captain Chen," Korthax replied, taking her hand in two of his 6, I believe you've taught us something today that we didn't know we needed to learn. Oh, what's that? That the strongest defense isn't always the one that keeps everyone out. Sometimes it's the one that knows when to let the right people in. Captain Chen smiled. Admiral, I think this might be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. As the two leaders walked toward the conference room, Cortax realized that the eternal shield hadn't failed. It had succeeded in ways its creators had never imagined. It had protected the Valdorian Empire not by keeping out a threat, but by recognizing that sometimes the greatest threat to a civilization is its own isolation. The humans had shown them that true strength didn't come from building higher walls, but from knowing when to open the gates. And perhaps most importantly, they had demonstrated that the universe was full of wonders and friends that could only be discovered by those brave enough to reach out with open hands and open hearts. In the years that followed, the Empire would undergo a transformation. The eternal shield remained, but it was no longer just a defensive system. It became a welcoming mechanism, a way of determining not just who was dangerous, but who was worth knowing. The humans had given them something more valuable than security. They had given them the possibility of connection, and in return, the Valdorians shared their knowledge, their art, and their friendship with a species that had taught them that the greatest adventures begin not with conquest, but with curiosity. The galaxy became a much more interesting place.